afternoon, everybody. I'm David Huff, CPA, PFS with DW Huff Consulting, bringing you this week's edition of News from the Frontlines of Business. So here we are, May 31st. It's Friday again, thankfully. And here we are with some topics that I've come up with, various discussions we have with clients. We could talk about rebalancing our investment portfolio and why that's a good idea. Talk a little bit more about the home office deduction in situations where you have a business that may not have generated taxable income in a particular year, and a little bit of tax planning for people who don't have a business and just have a W-2 as a source of income. And those people seem to be kind of neglected when it comes to tax planning a lot of times. So we'll toss out a couple of ideas there. Okay, so when we talk about rebalancing our portfolio, well, the reason why we want to have more than one asset class is right here. So we see on a given 30-year stretch here how not every asset class consistently kind of won. So we know stocks for long term are going to be our, where most of our earning power is going to come from. Foreign stocks being kind of a subset of that category. So I guess the U.S. isn't always on top, but as a general rule, stocks are going to provide most of the heavy lifting on our portfolio. But there are certain times when bonds or just regular cash are up. So, and if you have a little bit of exposure to all different asset classes in a certain ratio, and you rebalance back to that target ratio, it's been kind of shown how that gives you kind of reduces your risk overall and maximizes the overall return on the portfolio. So in this example here, they show how two different portfolios side by side. The one on the right had a certain allocation of bonds and stocks, so it's a little bit of S&P and the bond index is what was used, and they just left it alone. So basically, they set it at the portfolio a certain allocation in the beginning, didn't mess with it, and it still grew. That $100 grew to $776. So nothing to laugh at, but by taking advantage of rebalancing, that same $100 grew to $827. So it's not a massive change, but it is higher. And I guess as far as maintaining your sanity throughout the course of this investment time horizon, it's pretty good, because we see here that the rebalanced portfolio had volatility of only 11% as compared to 14% on when it was not rebalanced. So certain asset classes grew, the volatility also grew, and so that might make some people nervous, and maybe on a really bad year, sometimes people overreact and panic and sell out the worst possible time and don't even get this $776 return because they get out early when things get really crazy. Yeah, and look at the maximum loss expressed as a percentage. Your worst year was a negative 20% versus negative 27% if you didn't rebalance. So it becomes clear that just doing that annual rebalancing is a good idea for overall growth, and just keeping yourself in a situation where you can kind of stay the course and stick with your targets. And here's another graph that shows an example. So it's not very I guess exciting as you're going along. Here are two different portfolios, one without, one with rebalancing. And it takes a while for the two things to really noticeably separate. These two lines here, you look at the colors there. The green line with the rebalance is higher in most years, but not noticeably so. So it takes a little bit for it to really kind of separate itself. And at the end of the period here, we see there's a pretty decent gap in between the two. So it's worth doing, I guess. So it's not something, I guess if you didn't do it at all, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But if you want to maximize your return and squeeze a little bit more out of it, that management is something that most investment firms and most advisors will provide to you. That is most of the time worth the cost and extra fees. So keep that in mind. As always, reach out to us with any questions you have about that with your own investments. Now we've got this home office deduction. So something came out on the various things that I watched during the week, and somebody was saying how the home office deduction so that's a deduction that's allowed when you have a business going on, and you get to use a certain portion of your house and deduct that portion of home expenses as part of your business. And this one particular poster was saying how it was not a good thing to do when you have a loss because it gets limited. And it's kind of true. If you look at the Schedule C, I didn't put a picture of it here, but if you look at the Schedule C, you do see how that loss in general is limited to taxable income on any given year. So that post was kind of right, but not really, because this bad advice here it was mentioned here in another resource, but it goes forward. So the takeaway here is that yeah, you might not recognize any further reduction of any because Schedule C losses. We noted that they will offset other earned income from other businesses or W-2s. So yeah, you might not notice a benefit in this particular year, but by filing that return and establishing the fact that that loss took place will allow it to be carried forward to use further. So there's that part of it. But this other second point here is kind of big. If you don't establish that home office as your office, principal place of doing business, you can't use more of your commuting costs as automobile expenses. So yeah, so if you don't have the office at home and you're driving around to clients, or maybe you're driving to some other location that you use on a regular basis, you limit that deduction. That driving around deduction, the commuting costs, that actually can generate losses against other things. So so you want to have the office established for that reason as well. And then of course here, that operating loss that goes forward. So yeah, so any that operating loss carry forward goes forward. So we hope that if you are experiencing a loss, that it's not going to be a permanent deal. So having some losses that you generated this year to use in the future is something you can keep in your back pocket, and we like that. So as always, be careful of the TikTok advice. Um, it's not always complete. All right. So the last thing, um, another discussion with our clients. So tax planning when you have a person who just owns a W-2. So if you just have a job somewhere and that's your only source of income is that W-2, a lot of these tax planning strategies that you're going to see are going to seem like they are of no use to you. And for the most part, that's true. But here's some things that we see that can be used. So um, oil and gas limited partnerships is a possibility, as is solar energy. So if you're investing in solar panels and things for your home to save some money, there's some nice tax credits that can be generated for that type of investment. If you do some Airbnb with a spare bedroom or something to that effect in your house, there is a way to do that, have positive cash flow, but negative taxable income due to the way certain types of expenses are allowed to be deducted. So like those. But I want to spend just a quick second going back over this oil and gas uh, partnership and why um, that's something that's worth looking at. For if you're looking at, if you have a choice between two different investments, um, this might be one you want to consider. So we're not saying this is the perfect for every situation, but there are these limited partnership interests out there that primarily deal with exploration and processing of natural oil, gas, natural minerals and stuff of that nature. So when you put your money in, that you're basically going to be involved in a partnership with this company who goes out and drills for oil, let's say. All right, so the intangible drilling cost, so that component of things gets deducted in the first year. They're going to have some other tangible costs that are also going to be deducted, but those get treated similar to depreciation expense that goes out over time. We have a certain amount of depletion, so no matter what comes out, there's always this 15% of top line production that is a reduction of taxable income. So that's a non-cash expense, just like depreciation is. So that's a good thing to do. And then these active deductions can be taken against any kind of income. So we notice here salaries, other capital gains, interest, etc. So these are not like a regular passive income deal that would have these limitations. The fact that they're drilling oil and gas and that these oil and gas exploration and production costs are available makes it active income. So that's better than other types of partnerships you might get into, or even real estate in some cases. Sometimes those real estate losses get locked up for various reasons. So this is a thing to consider. And this was I forget which partnership this was, but I got this from somebody on the internet, and it just gave an example here how in year one this person put up some money, um, They went out and did some drilling and testing, and basically they had some intangible drilling costs in that 143,000. So in year one, they get $100,000 tax deduction. So that's kind of a good thing. So if you have a good year other places, this kind of works. So in year one, you get this big tax write-off. Then as things progress, you're gonna have this other reduction here for some other. It's showing you what the tax dollar break is for you, but you get this big $100,000 deduction. Now, subsequent years, you're not going to have as much, obviously, but if you're trying to save some money now when you're in a higher tax bracket to hopefully push things back into a future year, this is one way to do it. Because when it's throwing off income in future years, yeah, a big chunk investment has already been kind of taken, but we still got the 15%. We still got the tangible cost that are out there to help us out. So it's kicking a can down the road a little bit, and with the hope that your future years will be in a lower tax bracket and you'll benefit from this current year tax deduction, and that it works out better for you in the long run. So consider that, because that's something that's available to everybody, whether you have a job or not. All right, so that's it for this week. My closing thought here popped up on my feed this morning from X. Be quiet, work hard, and stay healthy. It's not ambition or skill that's going to set you apart, but sanity. So, yeah, so I've noticed that to be the case. Sometimes taking a break from work, backing off, and um, helps you come at it with a newly re-energized state of mind, and that's kind of a good thing. Being able to go to distance is, I think, important. So with that, we'll wish everybody a happy weekend, and we will see you out here next week.
Yeah.